Today's Columbus Day, which, let's be real, nobody actually celebrates. But it's still printed on our calendars, still treated like it's worth honoring. So let's unpack what this day actually stands for. Not the myth of discovery, but the reality of colonization, violence, and the genocide that followed. Welcome back to Kim's Breaking Point. I'm Kim, and here we unpack stories behind the headlines and about what's really going on in the world. If you're new here, I make videos that challenge mainstream media narratives and dig into the truth behind social, political, and historical issues that most people just gloss over. If this is something that you're into, gently tap that subscribe button and let's hop into this video. When we were kids, we were told that Columbus discovered America. He was like some heroic explorer who set sail across the ocean and found a new world. But that story leaves out one small detail. The new world wasn't new after all. Before 1492, the Americas were home to an estimated 60 million indigenous people spread across hundreds of nations with complex societies, languages, agriculture, and trade networks. This land was alive long before Columbus ever left Spain. When Columbus arrived in the Caribbean in 1492, the first people he met were the Taino, who lived in the small islands we now call the Bahamas, Hispaniola, and Cuba. He described them as kind, generous, and peaceful, but instead of building friendships, he built an empire on suffering. According to his own journals, Columbus kidnapped 10 to 25 Taino people on his first voyage and took them back to Spain. Only 8 survived the trip. On his second voyage, he returned with soldiers, weapons, and a mission: extract gold and convert indigenous people by force. Columbus imposed a brutal system called the encomienda, where Taino men were forced to mine gold and farm for the Spanish. If they failed to meet their quotas, they were tortured, mutilated, or killed. Some had their hands cut off as warnings to others. Historians estimate that within the 50 years of Columbus's arrival, the Taino population, which once numbered between 1 to 3 million, was virtually wiped out. That's not discovery. That's a genocide. And the violence didn't stop there. Between 1492 and the 1600s, the indigenous population across the Americas dropped from roughly 60 million people to about 6 million people. That's a 90% collapse, one of the deadliest in human history. Scholars call it the Great Dying, a combination of war, famine, and diseases like smallpox and measles, which indigenous people had no immunity against. Entire communities disappeared. Historians believe that this collapse was so massive, it changed the Earth's climate, as abandoned farmlands reforested and carbon levels dropped. So when we talk about Columbus discovering America, what we're really talking about is a mass extinction level. After Columbus, others came: conquistadors and colonizers, who followed the same violent blueprint. They took land, enslaved indigenous people, and imposed European rule. Fast forward to the founding of the United States, that legacy continued. Through wars, broken treaties, and forced removals like the Trail of Tears, the U.S. government displaced entire nations from their homeland. By 1900, the indigenous population within the United States had fallen to around 237,000 people, a fraction of what it once was. And colonization didn't just steal the land. It tried to erase culture. Native children were taken from their families and forced into boarding schools, where they were punished for speaking their own native languages or practicing traditions. Their goal was clear: kill the Indian, save the man. But here's what colonization can't destroy: resilience. Despite centuries of violence, indigenous people still survived. Today, there are more than 570 federally recognized tribes in the United States, and more are fighting for recognition. Across North and South America, indigenous communities are leading environmental movements, reclaiming language, and demanding sovereignty. Moments like Standing Rock, Idle No More, and Land Back are proof that this history isn't just about tragedy. It's about survival, resistance, and renewal. So when you see Columbus Day on the calendar, remember, it's not a day to celebrate discovery. It's a reminder that everything was taken. That's why so many cities and states have replaced Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day, a day of truth, remembrance, and respect, a day to honor the first peoples of this land and acknowledge that the United States exists because of colonization, not in spite of it. Columbus didn't discover America. He started a process which tried to erase it. So maybe today isn't about celebration at all. Maybe it's about reflection. and accountability. Because if we want a better future, we have to tell the truth about our past. And the truth is this: the story of America didn't begin in 1492. It began long before, with indigenous nations who are still here, still fighting, and reclaiming their history. If you learned something from this video, gently tap that like button, subscribe to this channel, and drop a comment down below sharing one thing you wished more people understood about Columbus Day or Indigenous history. That's it for this episode of Kim's Breaking Point, where we dive deeper, ask the harder questions, and remind people that the truth doesn't always fit the story we've been told. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.